Hello and welcome to Raw Talks with Dr. Brandy and Dr. Kemi, where raw conversations that let your spirit speak. Today we have an amazing special guest. Her name is Laura Jane Layton from the Laura Jane Layton Show. Hello, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Hi,
Me
Dr.
too.
Kemi. How are you?
Hello, ladies. I am fabulous. I'm excited for today's talk.
Me
Mhm.
too. So we invited Laura Jane Layton from the Laura Jane Layton Show. She's an amazing person. She's an amazing influencer, and she's also an author. And so I'm so excited to talk to her. One of her biggest topics is the inner bully. So welcome, Laura Jane Layton. And do you want to tell us a little bit about your books and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, let me tell you why I come up with this little inner bully thing. You know, um, Everybody calls it the inner critic. And when you think about a critic, it's someone who shows up once and they uh, say, "Oh, you're doing this wrong," and that you fix it and they're gone. But that negative self-talk that goes in my brain is like the bully on the playground that just won't shut up and they're at me all the time. And so I thought, this is more than just a critic. He's not just showing up once in a while. And so, how do we change that inner voice? And so, that's what I've worked on for years, one word at a time, changing. And I know there's so much to life that I figure here's one avenue I can help people with is how we talk to ourselves. It's not the only way we fix and get better, but it's one way that is easy to recognize as you start tuning in and start making those changes. And so I'm still working on changing my self talk because I still beat myself up. And the good news is I now know how to get out of the cycle sooner.
That's beautiful. Dr. Kemi, have you ever experienced having this inner bully, as Laura Jane would say?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All the time.
And what do you do with it?
Me? Well, it takes some acknowledging or like recognizing what's going on, and then there's so many tools to use. I like to ask myself why am I thinking that all the time? And kind of go into it that way in a more analytical sense. Sometimes it depends. There's such a wide variety of tools to use. Yeah, I'm curious to see, Laura. I'd like to hear what your favorite go-to is when you're teaching this.
I think the biggest thing I run into is realizing in this physical world that we live in, it's all right, wrong. It's all duality. There's no middle ground. It's either right or it's wrong. And I really I choose, I don't have to, I really choose to go and say, it just is. It's just another experience and simply just a thing I'm going through. And it's not good or bad. It's not big or little. It's just one more experience. And then I work on changing the way I talk about it. I try not to say I have to. I, it's still my auto default. I default to it all the time. But I go in and I go, okay, I'm choosing this. I'm choosing this for reasons. And I love that little cycle of why do I have to go to work? I don't have to go to work, but I really want a roof over my head. And to keep the roof over my head, I need to make money. And to make money, I go to work or however else we do it. I'm trying to find the reasons why behind it. And so, even though I have that bully, I try to change it into my friend. What would your best friend say? She wouldn't say, ah, you're going to have to do this whether you like it or not. She'd say, hey, you got this. You can do this. It's just one of those things that life brings to us. And so that's the way I approach it.
I
I
think
like
that's
that.
great. I'm trying to think of a time this week in which my inner bully came out. Um,
Mine always tends to. I'm always like, I always think, do you want to know how I feel about this? Like, I'm always thinking that, like when I'm cleaning, I'm like, does anyone care how I feel about this? And then I'm like, why do I always think that? People care. Like my family would care if I expressed that I'm frustrated or whatever. And then I think, well, if I don't want to be doing this, then why am I like cleaning the house or something? Like you can hear all the kids, it's finally nice out, right? So it's like they're all outside laughing and playing, and I'm like in the house kind of like, why am I the only one in here? Well, why am I? Do I have to be in here? This doesn't have to happen. I can go outside. I can let this piece go for a moment and I can choose a different path. So for me, this that's my repeat is how I'm kind of dealing with this and as a recent example. Yeah.
I
I think it's
love
a good
that.
example. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, why not go outside? Why am I not outside? Who told me the house had to be clean? Why can't I be a kid again and go have fun?
Exactly.
It takes me as a therapist to, um, the programming. I mean, whether it's positive programming or negative programming, it's still programming,
Yeah.
right? Even this itself is reprogramming our brains to see things from a different perspective and not allow the inner bully to control our lives. So um, sometimes I think it's important to find the root of that. Like, where did I hear that from, and why did that story begin? So that I can, like Laura Jane said, change the role of the bully to be the friend and not the. I mean, it's important to have critics sometimes, right? But the bully could be devastating.
It's okay to know what I could have done better.
Mhm.
I call those after action reviews. You know what we do at work, we can do at home. And I love to self reflect and go, I had a really rough day today. What was it that triggered it? Because it's your own triggers. It's like, can I rewire that? Is this something I want to respond this way to? Or do I want to respond differently? Because my happiness is in my pocket, nobody else's. And you can be as mean to me as I want, and I can choose whether that makes me sad or not.
Yeah,
So
and
you,
I'm more to myself than anybody else possibly could be. So it's kind of like, you set boundaries up for other people, and then, you have to learn how to set boundaries up for yourself too. Hmm.
yeah, I think that's really important. Now, when I was talking to Laura Jane the other day, she was explaining how she decided to write a child's book to help children because we don't know what their environments are. We know what ours were. We know what we provide for our children and how we try to change to make the world better. But there's still a lot of people who that bully is so strong. Do you have a picture of your book, Laura Jane? Do you have it with you? If not, I'll pull it up.
So, yeah, I have them on the floor over there. I didn't have them in my hand. But the thing about the kids' book is a lot of the way I speak to myself, I was taught. It's how everybody else talked to me. And we have these generations of programming. If you think about the old story everybody's heard, the mom cooks her ham and she cuts the ends off and she puts it in the oven. And people ask why you do that. Says it because it makes it taste better. Well, how does it make it taste better? I don't know. Ask grandma. So goes and asks grandma, why do we cut the ends off the ham? And grandma says, I don't know. It makes it taste better. And go to great grandma. Why do you cut the ends off the ham? So it'll fit in my stove. I mean, my oven. And so it's like these are generations of things that we learn. And I want to stop that at the kids' level. And so in the back of the books, I have if they say I can't, we can say I can learn or I'm stupid and I can do it this way. So I have a thing for the adults in the back of the book to help reprogram our kids before they're in their midlife crisis going, I can't deal with life anymore. Yes, you can. How do we change that? And so the book series are all these little different characters that have superpowers. Of the one that's in illustration right now is Candy, who goes from I can't to I can. And how do we reword that and rephrase that? And one of them's finding your superpower. And it's the first one that's just the general self talk. When someone tells me I'm bad, I can say I'm unique, and how to switch that out. So just ways to get it at our kids' level. And then recently I started working on an adult one because we all get the choice to fix it or not, and it's our words. And I think one day I'm going into this heart procedure and the nurse has gotten me all prepped and they're starting to wheel me off and she says, good luck. And I looked at her and I said, I sure as help though, hope this isn't up to luck, that I'm in good hands and the surgeon knows what he's doing. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's the word. It's like, why not say, hey, you're in good hands. This guy's got great instead of good luck. So it's just little things like that, that when I can change it, make you feel better about that next step.
I was talking to a friend of mine in her mid 50s, and then I had a client who's in early 20s. One day, the 20-year-old comes to me, and I'm like, so what brings you back to therapy? And he goes, it's just have a hard time because people don't want to have deep conversations. And I was like, ah, this is a wise kid. And then 2 days later, my 55-year-old friend is like, Brandy, life's just hard because people just don't want to have deep conversations. And I think it goes back to what you were just saying is everything's so superficial, right? People kind of, especially if you don't know what to do with something, they don't want to talk about it because it's almost like if you talk about it, then you're making it the responsibility of them to fix the problem versus just having a community to talk through something with. So we become superficial or we become short, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if
Yeah.
that feeds the inner bully, but
I think we just are so much on autopilot, and I know you love to go into that intentional living. And when someone says, hey, Tammy, how are you? I'm going to expect you're going to say fine and we're going to keep on walking. And that's that automatic response. Why not say, hey, it's a great day? Or, oh my gosh, the rain has cleaned the air, or whatever it is. Why not change it so it's not automatic?
yeah, yeah. So, Dr. Cami, what are some things that you do to, like, Dr. Cami has kiddos. So, how would you apply this with your kids and the automatic thinking and the inner bully? What do you do?
Well, we have our parenting goals on our bathroom wall, that we've put together of things like that we want to teach our kids how to do. So we have direction too, because I feel like a lot of times you have this overarching goal of like, I want my kids to be like this. And it's good to have some direction. So I can say, okay, today we were really far away from it, or today we were really close to hitting some of these goals. And it gives us like, um, the verbiage to repeat things to our kids a little bit more. Like one of them is accountability. Like you always have responsibility in actions. And so you can't be a victim. So when they're fighting and it's like, well, he hit me, so I pushed him. So I sit both my kids down. I'm like, it's your responsibility not to hit. And it's your responsibility to listen and to what they're saying so that you don't get to that point where you're getting pushed too. So like teaching them that no matter what is happening in life, there's a piece that you can take responsibility for because that's healing in itself. I'm going to change this so it doesn't happen again. Um,
Yeah.
Things like that. We try to always do that. Like it's supposed to be hard. You're not supposed to know how to tie your shoes. It's supposed to be hard. It's
Yeah.
you're when you're in the body phase of learning something new, it's hard. And then when it becomes automatic and you're, driving a car, we don't think about anymore, but when we first started, it was hard, or riding a bike. And so acknowledging like, yeah, it is hard. It's okay. It's supposed to be. And they're like, oh, okay. Things like that.
Yeah. I've actually used that, Dr. Kemi, on my kids since you said that in one of our other talks. And I was like, are you supposed to know how to do that? Oh, I guess not. I'm like, so why are you being so hard? You're like, we're having a human experience. You're just learning for the first time. So that negative self-talk is not helping you. So how can you change that? And what are some examples in your book, Laura Jane, where you talk about this with, because both our kids, well, my younger kids are similar to Dr. Kami's ages, not my older ones. I'm an older mom.
That's okay. We got this. Our kids are our kids no matter how old they are. So, but it's that when Dr. Kami was talking about when they're hitting each other, and I'm like, my parents would have made me say I'm sorry. They wouldn't have asked why, they wouldn't have worked into it. Nothing bad on my parents' side, but it was just say sorry and you're done. And so you came in with this shamefulness. And I started teaching my kids, let's take this, let's walk it back. How did this get triggered? Okay, how could we have changed that? Not far enough back. Okay, let's go back a little bit further and just do their own reflection with them of why they got to the point of being frustrated in the first place and helping them work through new direction. So I love that you're not making them say sorry, because I was so programmed to say it. I could walk into inanimate objects and say sorry. It's like,
Yeah.
but we are programmed. And in the books, it just helps with that switching the words and going forward and practicing. And I say all the time, everybody has a different word that triggers them.
Right.
And my example that's to the extreme is 99 something percent of people, that's my made up statistic, would love it if you told them I love you. They would feel, oh, thank you. I feel worthy. But there's those a handful of women that have been beat and destroyed. And when you say, I love you, there's the fear that comes with it. Words don't trigger the same. And so it's finding your own triggers, figuring out where they came from and fixing them. And so that's what my adult book's about. And I have it's called Silencing the Inner Bully, because I want to stick with that, because I am a critic's fine. Go ahead and tell me that I didn't quite do that right. It's the bully that reminds me every 5 minutes that I did it wrong, that I want to get rid of
Yeah.
or
It is.
change.
I
Yeah.
like that. I'm curious as the neuroscience behind that, because that there are studies that they look at, like even elementary students who use more vocabulary and more words in their essays, like I can't remember is that they're more successful, but I think that learning new verbiage and new ways of expression, that's one of our parenting goals too, is if you have good communication and you can voice your thoughts, opinions, things, you're gonna save a lot of heartache and fighting and all that stuff. And so I'm curious about how, I don't know if either of you have any background knowledge in this, but like what that does to somebody's, even the way their brain chemistry works, is like you're expanding your vocabulary so drastically by learning how to navigate these triggers so that you can express yourself and feel, gift given, gift not received, right? So like I say I love you, but that gift is not received because it's triggering. So then when you're manipulating that and moving into a different way, you can start receiving gifts broader. And so I think that's really fascinating.
So
Yeah.
when I think about it as a therapist, I did this research. So there's the developmental stages with Eric Erickson. And so the first stage, 0 to 18 months or 0 to 3 years old, is about trust versus mistrust. And a lot of research shows if you let your baby cry themselves to sleep for more than 15 minutes, it actually harms the brain, and the chances of conduct disorder increase because they're learning not to trust the world. So my aligning with that research and what you're saying is when you're nurturing the brain and you're responding to the kids and you're giving them the love, you cannot spoil with hugs and kisses and loves and holding 0 to 3 years old, right? And then expanding their vocabulary feeds the brain, increasing the neural pathways and gives them more clarity on how they feel, which lets them know that they can trust the world because they're a response system. That's what I'm thinking. How about you, Laura Jane?
I just go with how it makes me feel. When you say something to me, and I go for that dopamine hit when it makes me feel good. It's like, okay, I like this word. I'm going to use this one more. And so I've done all my changes by trial and error. I don't like knowing I have to. I'm stubborn. I'm going to choose to do things. And so
Yeah.
that was a word that really mattered to me. And then I've been yo-yo dieting all my parenting life. And one of the things that I've learned to do instead of saying, I can't have that, is to say, I'm choosing not to eat that at this moment because I want to have choice. I am always at choice. There's nothing making me do anything except for me. And so it's for me, that was important. Maybe I was controlled in another relationship at one point, and I said never again. And that includes me, not just everybody else.
Yeah. So, I think in research for therapy and neurotransmitters, you get these blocks in your brain when you're taught something or you have an experience, right? And with work of like Dr. Joe Dispenza or accelerated resolution therapy or Neville Goddard, there's this path of imagination in which you utilize to help your brain find new opportunities or new options, which shows that it can create new neurotransmitters. So, as Dr. Kami said, is adding vocabularies and ways to think of things from different perspectives and how to feel. You don't have to feel this or that, good or bad, happy or sad, because there's so many in between that, right? And by educating our kids, you're actually expanding those pathways in their brains and giving them more options. I have a grandson who's 3 years old, and he will have a full conversation and understands because his mom takes the time to educate him on different ways of communicating, and he speaks Spanish and English, which also increases the neurotransmitters. And then my boys are 7 and 8, and you can have a full conversation with them and you're like talking to a mini adult because you treat them as if they're already smart because they are, as if they're human because they are. And to teach them, like my 8-year-old yesterday was like, Mom, school is so hard because you have all these friends and they want to be friends with you, but they want you to pick if you have to be friends with someone else or someone else, but I want to be friends with all of them. And then they don't like each other for whatever reason. It's kind of weird. I don't understand why we all just don't play or he's 8. And I'm like, yeah, the world's hard because there's so many things in the middle. So you need to go with he's kind of picked up on a little bit of shame. Like I feel bad because 3 people or 4 people want to say you want to play. So I try to find a solution. I'll say, hey, how about I play with you tomorrow? Or I'll play with you next week. And I'm like, well, what do you want? And he's like, well, and I'm like, so maybe go with what you want that day. Like, who do you want to play with? And then see if you can bring them together. And he's very he thinks before he responds, but he does talk a lot, which is, I think, a beautiful thing, really, because he moves it through his brain, right? So everything's about that we can introduce to ourselves, to our children, even when we change our thought process. So if you imagine, like, I'm stupid and like I still catch myself sometimes going, Brandy, you're so dumb. And I'm like, wait, what? And then I'm like, no, you're not dumb. You're just silly. You made a mistake. You got this. Just keep moving. But when you do that, you're erasing kind of one pathway and you're creating a whole nother one. And your brain, research shows we use 10 to, I don't even know what percent, maybe Dr. Cami can speak to this, but I know that we have the capacity to even make it use more of our brain capacity.
Yeah, I think all of this really starts to shift, like when people can't change, and like nobody's gonna change till they're sick of their own bullshit. But when you get sick of this thing and you're like, you want to grow into something bigger and brighter, and you want to feel good in your body. I think we've all used words as a good tool that you can fall back on, to start rewiring those pathways. And I'm very curious to see what happens in a generation where we're aware of trauma as it happens, right? So we've all gone through it blindly and come out like through trial and error. And now we're all parents, and we recognize that there's inherent traumas that happen for all humans. And when you can correct it in the moment almost with your children or shortly after, like you're more adapt to doing that. And seeing, I'm very curious to see what kind of people we have as a generation that grows up with all of those healing tools just built in, like I want to learn a second language right now. That would be amazing. How hard I cannot, like it's not
I'm
clicking.
actually I'm
Do that at
trying right
school.
now. I'm doing Dutch and I'm actually now dreaming in it. I'm like I wake up singing a song. I'm like, I wonder what that word means. Because I'm repeating it in my head. So I'm gonna do it, Dr. Cami. Within a year, I'm gonna speak
You're
Dutch.
doing it. I keep trying, and then it's like too many other things, and it doesn't, like, I'm not consistent with it. But what I'm saying is, like, you can teach children, they're so in the moment. They're not worrying about the future or the past if they're in a healthy environment, and they're there and they're absorbing it all. I'm like, if I would have been planted those seeds and learned as a child, I could speak a second language and all these. So it's interesting that all these healing tools are going to be built in as a second language for our children. And I'm very curious to see what a generation of that doesn't carry around decades of trauma what it's going to look like.
Well, with my own kids, because I've done that and they're older, I've seen a variety. I see kids who want to have deep conversation, who's not afraid to ask the whys. But I've also seen that some kids, they still need their trauma experience. It's very interesting to watch, right? And they go through this experience, no matter how many tools you taught them. But the beautiful thing is they come out at the other end and they remember and then they apply the tools. But we're still kind of coming out of the trauma era where we're taught to we went from don't talk about mental health, there's no trauma, it doesn't exist, to everyone has trauma and everyone has mental illness and everyone this. And I think we're going to come back to this middle pillar with, yeah, everyone in the world at some point is going to experience a mental illness, whether it's depression or anxiety, because we're multidimensional beings, you're going to hit perimenopause and you'll feel anxiety for the first time because you never did before. Or you're going to be a teenager who's going through your puberty and you feel anxiety and think you're crazy, but you're not. Your hormones are just everywhere. Or your emotions you felt for the first time. So these tools, I think the greatest thing is, the planting those seeds. But what I'm noticing more in this generation is them asking why, wanting to have deeper conversations, knowing there's more to life than just working 40 hours. So they're stuck too in the I don't want to work 40 hours. I want to work 30 and be able to live my life and have an experience. But then, outside forces say, oh, well, we're going to force you to do that because you can't pay rent without working 40 to 60 hours a week. Right. So I feel like I'm seeing it already in some of my clients, right? The 20-year-old who says, I want to have deep conversations, and not just live life blindly. I want to have a purpose. So that's what but yeah, I'm so interested to see as it continues to unfold.
Mm. I love watching the change happen, as we try to break the cycles we were born with, and then watching our children break the cycles that yes, I wasn't a perfect parent. Now they get to
Mhm.
break that too. And I had my granddaughter, she was probably 4 at the time or 5, and it's like she loved Disney. So I was going to take her to a Disney movie, and it's like, "Hey, do you want to go to," I can't even remember what it was, "movie with me?" And she said, "That's not really my interest." And I went, "Thank you for being honest with me." It wasn't, "No, I don't want to spend time with you." It's like, "I'd rather do something else with you." And y you go, "How do these children have these amazing ways of saying no?" And I go, I guess I'll go because even though I'm not gonna like it, I'll go because 'cause we're gonna be together." And it's like, they're outshining us, and I love it. I love that they have those powers to speak their truth.
I think with that, what I tell my parents to remember, because you'll hear this phrase. I've even said it before until I caught myself, but it's, oh, they don't know trauma because they haven't been through what I've been through, right? And maybe they haven't, but it doesn't mean they're not going to go through their own, and they never will. So why? Well, I mean, you can share it when their brain's developed and they understand and they can process it. But until then, be there, listen to what they define as trauma, teach them, educate them, hold space for them, hold them accountable. Like all that is an important balance. You don't dismiss it, you don't feed into it, but you acknowledge it, you validate it. I always tell my kids this. when my sons are upset, I say my sons right now because my two younger boys and my three younger boys still live at home. When they're upset about something, I'll say, "What is your solution?" Like, first, how do you feel? How did that make you feel? And then what is your solution? Because you're capable. You're capable of finding a solution. If you have a friend that's mean to you and it continues to be mean, even though you've expressed how you feel and what you've asked, then maybe they shouldn't be your friend anymore. And you need to set that boundary. What are your solutions? And sometimes it just blows my mind when the younger kids are like, well, yes, they're mean to me, but I still like them and I'm willing to hold space for them until I'm not. Beautiful, right? But you're consciously doing it. You're consciously aware of that. My 8-year-old this year, he says, "Mom, school's hard because you meet friends," and he's in second grade, just finished second grade. You meet your friends in kindergarten, and then the next year you have different classes, so then you kind of lose those friends, and then you have to go again, and then you keep losing and gaining friends. Why do they do that? And it kind of blew my mind because I knew it was a hard transition from um, junior high to high school or elementary to junior high for a lot of friends because or kids because they lose their friends. But he gave me a different perspective. It's not just then, it's all the time, right? Because they just put them in whatever classes. So people build these relationships and then all you get is like two recesses and a lunch break. So where's the forming of friendships in the school system, right? It's very minimal. And then now a lot of kids play through electronics, but not in person,
Mhm.
you know? So
Electronics is, I still get mad at it. And it's the most inanimate object out there. And you're like, "Ah,"
yeah,
and you know the feelings are coming from inside.
yes. I teach my kids if you're in a bad mood because you've been on electronics too much, then get off. And I wish I could just have them not on it, but the reality is that I would be doing my kids a disservice because when they get out in the world, they're going to have to navigate it anyway. So then I try to navigate by educating them about their moods and what's going on with their moods. So, hey, you were on electronics for how long? Oh, I've been on it since, for 3 hours. Normally I'm at work, and I'll say, okay, how are you feeling? Well, I'm kind of agitated. Yeah, we'll listen to your body. What does your body need? I should probably just turn it off and go play. So I've started to notice, like, I'll be home, I get home from work and they're outside playing. I'm like, oh, what are you guys doing? Oh, we got tired of our electronics. We were getting irritated. So I'm trying to educate them on how to balance what is going to be here for the rest of their life, right? So,
That's awesome. They're learning to get out and ground themselves already. Like,
yeah, that's the goal.
I'm still learning that. I
I,
have to just delete everything on my phone. I'm like, okay, I'm done with social media for a month. Like I literally have to delete everything and like it has to be an extreme break for me. I can't just set it down and like, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
good to teach our kids, but it's a good tool for our own self-regulation too.
100%.
and even though kids go through new people relationships. Every time we change a job, every time something switches in our own lives, as adults, we go through this. And it's like you think you're going to be friends forever, and then all of a sudden you're not crossing paths and they just fade away. And it's like, oh, I'm lonely. And then you get new friends. It's just like, so it's not nice that they're learning it young, but it is something that pretty much happens the rest of our lives as we come and go and our the moon changes. I don't it just every day something new happens.
And I think it's important for them to know because we are in a path of progression. So you have to know that sometimes the reason you shift that is because one is on a different path or stuck, and if you want to keep progressing, sometimes you have to change your friends to learn the next thing that you're here to learn. Right. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's hard and it's better to start to learn now. But you'll have some lifelong friends, which is great. But then even then, like Dr. Kemi and I have known each other for how long?
Oh, 10
Oh,
years?
yeah, I was like over 10 years. And we are friends from a distance because she's in Minnesota and I'm in Utah, but we maintain our friendship. But there'd be moments we don't talk for a month until our next podcast, and then we'll text a lot, and then we don't because maybe we're working and we're doing this and we're progressing. So, but we honor that. We don't personalize that. she doesn't love me because she doesn't text me. It's like, oh no, she's living life. Maybe I need to text her and think about her. Hey girl, you know. And so it's teaching our kids that because even watching junior high and high school kids on how they fight because they don't want to share friendship and you're only my friend or someone else's, it's like, oh, we got to teach you how to navigate that because that's not how life's going to be, right? So, um, I wanted to talk a little bit. So I'm going to show you her book. So I have it here. My kids have read it. It's on Amazon. It's also on our my website, divineawakeningcenter.com. Under books, Dr. Cammie's book is also on there. My books are on there. Um, so you can go there. You can also go to www.divineawakeningcenter.com and go to Raw Talks podcast and get a listing of our podcast if you can't find them on YouTube. And I did want to put something out there that Laura Jane Layton and I are starting an Imagine It tour, Imagine It, a conscious way of living in Utah. And we'll be doing workshops out of the center. Dr. Cami and I will continue to do podcasts, to do raw talk. So if you guys have a topic that you want to cover or just maybe you're afraid to have those deep conversations with other people because they just don't get it or it's a sensitive topic or you think it's a sensitive topic, put it in the responses and we'll take a look at that and we'll have a raw talk about it. But Dr. Cami, is there anything else you wanted to say?
I have one question. I just want to end on if we're gonna. I just have one question for Laura Jane. So, what is your favorite go-to tool to feel safe in your body?
I I have a lot of different breaths that I use, but always it's a breath. A conscious breathing it will take me from being lost to focused again, where I can start doing stuff. And I have some that for grounding and that simple little box breath where you hold is probably the one I do the most. But yes, breath work, simple breath work that just quiets the chatter.
I love that. I love that.
Do you have any last words, Laura Jane, that you would want to share on Raw Talks?
You know, my whole message in life on my podcast and everywhere is be kind to yourself. Put yourself first. You know, we are taught that helping everybody else is the important way to be cool. It's time to step back and help yourself and do what it takes to be serving from a full cup instead of on empty.
And if you want more driven conversations like that, you can go to the Laura Jane Layton Show. And when we post this, we will put the link under the comment or somewhere to description, along with a link to her book. And listen, they're amazing, amazing podcasts. Dr.
Yeah,
Cami?
yeah, I'm excited. Check
Me
him
too.
out.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. And I'm going to, again, thank the audience and make sure that you put your comments and subscribe and like and share.
Thank you.